The following presentation was recorded live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for the 22nd Annual International Association of Square Dance Callers. This is tape number 26, Advanced Techniques of Sight Calling 2.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Davis. This is Kip Garvey. This is our second session on Advanced Sight Calling Techniques. This morning, how many were there this morning? Or put another, how many were not there this morning? All right, this morning what we did was extend our knowledge from a previous thing that we did 3 or 4 years ago, and we found really nothing that different. That is that in sight calling, resolution, we're talking just about the resolution now, primarily, we're talking about that. We found that the majority of callers, although they use different little schemes and systems and so forth, they basically do one kind of thing. They look for a partner pairing. They look for a partner pairing as the first step in resolution. They look for a partner pairing. This was just, as far as I could tell this morning, everybody did that. And when we did it 3 years ago, essentially everybody, I think maybe one person did something a little different. But basically everybody's looking for a partner pairing as not necessarily just part of the thing, but as the first step, as opposed to just part of it. Clearly, at some point in time, any kind of resolution comes up with a partner pairing or association. That's clear. But we're talking about sort of the first step. The first step in the resolution problem turned out to be partner pairing. So what we thought we'd do this afternoon is we're going to assume that we've got partner pairings. And once you've got that, what are the various things that you can do? How can you exploit that without having to necessarily go back to just one thing, like, key man paired on the left end of the line, pass through, wheel and deal. Other things than that can be done. There's a lot of other things that can be done. We're going to be looking for you guys to give us some of your ideas, and we're going to, for every situation we set up, we're going to have at least one idea of our own that allows you to see perhaps a different window on that same thing. But they're all the things that we're going to talk about are basically going to be associated with some kind of partner pairing first, and then taking the next step. And that's what we're planning to do this afternoon. Yep.
Okay, and to take this morning's session just a step further, we also discovered, we actually verified what we had suspected, that callers who are sight callers have all got varying degrees of ability. And yet when they sit down to communicate with each other, communication becomes difficult. A lot of the problems with communication, most of the difficulty is because you view what you do as a system. So we're hearing things like, my system is, or this system that I use, or that system. You use a particular procedure in your sight calling, but it is all part of the same system. It is all sight calling. What we do have is we have grades of proficiency. In other words, you get very comfortable with doing it a particular way, you enjoy it, and that's about all you really need to know about it as far as you're concerned, so that becomes your system. It's neat to know that you can explore other ways to accomplish resolution, not just the one way or the 2 way or the 3 ways that you do it. And in order to do that, the first thing we have to do is to break down this barrier of communication that we have. We're all talking about the same thing. We're talking about sight calling and sight resolution. When you hear a man say that I do this or I do that or I do this, he's simply at a different plateau in the sight calling framework than you might be. That's all. And you can get there too if you think that you want to. All you have to do is develop that skill aspect. And so this afternoon we're going to point out to you, we hope anyway, we're going to try to show you some different things you can do after you get the dancers paired. Bill and I are both satisfied that that's what all callers first do. We're not completely convinced that that's the way it ought to be, but we appreciate the fact that 99 out of 100 callers first look for a pairing. So with that basic assumption, we'll set up a pairing type of situation, assuming that we've all recognized it, and say, okay, now what can you do after you get this pairing? What can be done from that point? Obviously, there's a lot that can be done. All right? But we need to know what are some of the things that you do, and we'd like to show you some of the the variations are amazing. I mean, there's just so many of them that can be done. Most of us, I think, recognize, let's start with a line, shall we? Sound like a good idea? And if you have this morning's sheet, we're talking about the sheet that has the setups on it that are enumerated like L1P, L2P, and so on. Now, we may have a problem with this in that if you weren't at this morning's session, you may not have this handout, and we don't have any more. How many are in that situation? Okay. What we need you to do is to get next to somebody who's got one. All right? So, turn around, shake a hand, change a seat. Okay? Because I think it's important that you understand what we're doing here. Now, we're not here to discuss the symbol system that is used, the L1P, or that would that be the same thing as a 1P, 2P, or forget it. Okay, we're not here to discuss how we're going to designate the particular setups. What we do is we can recognize certainly that the squares are the men, the circles are the women, and the little point that comes out is their facing direction, and the number inside of the symbol represents their numbered order from a squared up set. So the first symbol is what you would arrive at if you had the heads lead right and circle to a line. All right, so we're all together this far, right? And so on. Now, in sight calling, we want to be able to recognize that formation when it comes around. We want to be able to see it because it's a very primary, very fundamental setup. And as all of them are, the 6 that you see for lines, we feel are the most common type of lines that callers most often see. Likewise, on the reverse side, when we get to the boxes, these are the 6 most common box setups that callers see on the fly.
These 6, I don't know how to use this, and these 6 recognize, in case you hadn't, that the 6 are 6 out of 16 possible. We're talking about the normal arrangement, so there's 16 possible, and these are 6 of them. So there's only 6 of the 16, but they're very easily recognizable because they have one thing in common. There's a very close partner association. That's what they amount to. Very, very clear identification of a partner. And our experience, as we said from this morning and previously, was that the partner coupling, if you will, is a thing that most people find the easiest to recognize, and so there ought to be something we can do about that, and we think there is.
Also, just one little more caveat before we get into this. We're going to be talking about partners. We're going to be talking about people that we're going to acquire as a partner, people we could get as a partner, all within the same formation. So don't automatically assume when we say that we have our partner in the line that partner is adjacent to her partner, all right? That they're actually right beside each other. That might be a goal, but we've also discovered that some callers can see through that. For instance, you have a two-faced line, and your original partner might be in the line with you once removed. And a lady's trade will get you your original partner. So we call that the ability of acquiring a partner. And we still may look at that as being very close to a partner type of line. All right? So allow a little bit of latitude when we discuss this, especially among ourselves. Be a little bit open-minded and don't freeze out the possibility that a man could be making a correct statement if he just clarifies the language a little bit. All right? We're going to have a square up, so we can demonstrate some of this. And if you're in a situation where it's going to be difficult for you to see a square that would be placed right here in the center, would you please move your seats now so you can see what's going on? And we'll get a square up. We also need a square. And we also need you to help us rearrange the room back to the way it was before we leave. Okay? Chuck's got a different partner. Okay, while you can take the perspective of being the caller yourself and choose, is it Jim? and choose Jim to be the number one man if you want. Makes no difference. Okay? Or, if you prefer, bring your chair up around here and view it from where the microphone is. Whatever you feel most comfortable doing. And then the first thing we want you to do, of course, is to carefully mark or pick or select your partners and your pairings so that we can all agree on who has whom and what particular order they are. Okay?
All right, let's do this for me, if you please. Heads lead right, right and left through, and veer left. A couple circulate, and at this point, we've got a two-face line. Everybody's a partner. I think they're all in sequence. You agree? Bend the line. We're talking about now the facing line, 0 line, 1P, 2P, we call it L1P, whatever. And we all have get-outs from this line, I'm sure. And this is an easy one to recognize. What I suggest is you might want to look at some additional things you can do. They're also very short. You know, obviously here you can star through, square through, 3, and outline left, right? You could do a pass-through, bend the line, pass through, partner, trade, and roll, right and left grand. Those are the things that people would probably most likely do from this situation. Let's look at this one. Here's and there's others. You know, you can touch a quarter and do a girls run or a circulate and boys run, that kind of a thing, and get out. Now, I think those are the most common ones. Here's one you might not have thought about. This is the kind of thing we're sort of looking at. Everybody, pass the ocean, please. Let's do a linear cycle. Now put a roll on the end of it, and right now we got that left-hand column. Now we can do one of two things. We can either have just the girls peel off and right left grand, or if you don't like that, or if you want to expand on that, everybody do 1/2 of a zoom, go please, and a right left grand. And there you are, and that setup for that was that, go ahead, or promenade home, whatever. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done the right left grand. But anyway, you can see that you can do that. So that's the kind of thing we're looking for here. Just change it a little bit. Something that you can recognize. We're going to get other things we recognize, but that's one that I think you can recognize. Let's try this. Look at it a little bit different way. Let's have sides, please, lead right, and do a right and left through, veer left, and couples circulate. Bend the line. Now we see we really have the same situation, a little bit different look to it, but obviously the same situation. You agree? All right, let's just look at that same thing again in case some of you didn't catch it. Pass the ocean. Now, you might say, well, gee, I'm just doing mainstream, and I don't have linear cycle, and I don't have roll. Let's see what we might do there. Let's say recycle, please. Sweep a quarter. Now, if you don't, here a good roll is the roll still works very nicely here. But if you don't have the roll, you could say, and it's not quite as neat, is everybody face right, please. Touch left hands. Touch left hands, and that doesn't have quite as neat a flow, but the roll is such a terrific call, and it's a good call for getting things to flow well. And we have the same setup. We have this left-hand column, and everyone's very close to part. We can't have either peel off, but we can do the half a zoom here. That turns out it's probably a little tougher, but it's mainstream. So you could do that here. Half a zoom, please, and then you could do a right and left grab, but just promenade home. You're very close. Okay. Now, there's just a couple of things that I would consider an expansion of what you already know. You can recognize that setup. You can recognize that setup, and you've got 2 or 3 things you can do, and if you don't, you certainly should have 2 or 3 things you can do there. I'm suggesting there's some other things you can do, and not that are complicated either. They aren't 7 or 8 call things. They're just a couple of calls that put you right back in the same kind of a situation with a little bit of a twist, and that adds some interest. Okay? Anybody else that want to add on to that particular situation? Yeah.
From the zero line, you pass the ocean.
Yeah, could you get to the microphone? That'll help us.
You want to speak, kind of move over to the mic before you...
Yeah, because we are being taped.
Sorry. Nick Martellacci from Brooklyn, New York. You have a zero line, pass the ocean. It's gimmicky, but girls start left swing through 1.5.
Sure.
Which is the same thing as a girl's trade swing through.
I don't think that's necessarily gimmicky, but you're right. That's another good little deal. That's good. Do you all see that? Let's do that. Heads lead right, please. Right, left through. Veer left, bend the line. All right, here's the one he said. Pass the ocean. Girls start, if you wish, left, swing through, go once, and a half. And there's your, you don't forget that. Because that half, yeah, that's right. Okay, and the centers have to do that other half. And then here's your right and left grand, all right? So that was that one. Good. Let's have the boys run, please, if you don't mind. Bend the line. Anybody else have one that's a little bit different? All right. Now, we got. If they have trouble with fan the top and spread, let's try this. Pass the ocean, girls trade. That's like fan the top, isn't it? And now the girls trade, and you said, what is it, Chuck? And spread. And spread. So the girls trade and spread. Okay, now, acey-deucey, Alaman left. So if you think you're having trouble, let's just run that by again because I want you to see it. If you think you're having trouble with fan the top for the people from facing couples without having that proper lead-in of box and that or something like that, which you guys suggest to make it easy, let's look at it again. Heads, lead right, and circle to a line just to make it a little different. That's a little tougher, but all right. So instead of fan the top and spread, here's what I might use. Pass the ocean. Girls trade and spread. Girls circulate, boys trade. There's your acey-deucey, Alaman left. And so you can get by without the fan the top, but the fan the top, of course, works nicely too. You got the dancers are all used to doing fan the top, or they've done the other one a few times. Now you're going to give them a little bit of a notch up. You can say fan the top. Girls use your left hand or something like that, and spread. Okay? Anything else on that same one? I don't want to get to some others, but this is a common one that people see a lot, and you guys are writing now, I hope. They're taking these things down. Yeah. Come to the microphone if you've got a deal. Let's once again set our deal. Sides, please. Lead right, right and left through. Veer left, bend the line. Yeah.
Once again, Nick Martellacci from Brooklyn. And you have to cue them through this because they're not going to be expecting it. Right and left through. Dixie style to a wave. Boys trade in the middle. Do passo. Partner left. Look for the corner with the right. Go as far as you have to. Partner left. Roll promenade.
Just back it up a little. But just back her up. Right. All right. Well, why don't you just step out the line? I was just going to say that. You did great. Yeah.
Hi, Mike Callahan.
Mike?
You got your lines there. Centers square through four hands, while the ends do an Alaman left. And everybody meet, do a right and left grand.
Sure. Don't do it, but just square them up there. All right? So you can see, guys, if you haven't been using some of these other kinds of things from this easily recognizable setup, it might be worth your while to write down a few. How do you make that happen? Well, the way I make it happen, if I've got a new one that I'm enamored of, I'll just write it down, I'll throw it out on the table, and I'll use it 2 or 3 times during the evening. By the time I've used it 2 or 3 times, I then own it, sort of. It belongs to me. I start to own it then. And then I can use it at leisure, if you will, or as the thing is coming on.
Okay, now let's take things a step further. On the sheet, right next to the top setup, the L1P, to the right of it, if you haven't already written something in there, reproduce that setup, but don't put the girls' numbers in the circles. All right? Just quickly draw out your squares and your circles and your line, and number the men the same way, but don't put the ladies' number in there. And then once you've done that, in place of number 1 lady, put number 4 lady, and in place of number 4 lady, put number 1 lady. All right? Just as if you had chained the ladies across, which is precisely what we're going to do now. Let's chain the girls across. Now, in recognizing a pairing, we can also recognize a potential pairing, or one that's going to be acquired. A lot of callers, site callers, will see this line and see that original partner is straight across from the men. And now how do we get there? I mean, just back up to what we just described or drew on our sheet of paper, and it was literally a ladies' chain. We'll bring the ladies back again. But do we have to actually bring the ladies back so that we can then do some of these clever little line get-outs that we had? And the answer, of course, is no, as long as you're able to recognize the situation. So let's do just 1 or 2 quick little get-outs from here. Suppose you arrived at here and you said, you're thinking to yourself in real time, And you know the thought processes go on a lot longer than the speech processes. But you're thinking, gee, if I chain the ladies back again, I can do a cute little line get-out. But also from here, there are a number of little get-outs you can do without chaining those girls. And using mainstream choreography, for instance. Do a spin the top. And that in itself will walk them into partners. All right? Boys run around the girl. Bend the line. Spin the top. And this will walk them into a right and left grand. All right? Don't do it. Oh, what'd I do?
You're wrong.
Boys trade. Boys trade. Oh, I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry. Swing through. Explode and spin the top. And this is where they'll walk right into that right and left grand. Now, don't do the right and left grand, but do me a favor and go right out to your lines. All right? Go right out to your lines at this point. And you see that all we did here was change the original sighted setup by having the ladies chain, or recognizing that a ladies chain would get us there. Chain the girls across. And now for this next one, I've got to have them out of sequence. So let's do a right and left through. What a strange statement. I've got to have them out of sequence. The boys, that is. Everybody see that? What sequence state are the women in? They're in. And what sequence state are the men in? They're out. And so we have here a situation of mixed sequence states. All right? We, in our original attempt, we were trying to find out whether or not callers saw sequence first before they saw pairings. And it was this exact situation where we finally decided that there's no question about it, they see the pairings before they see the sequence, because the sequence is very dynamic. It can mix on you. Now, from here past the ocean, do a left swing through. And whoop, 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 and there it is. All right? So boys run around that girl. Chain down the line. Okay, so there's another way that you can set up this particular setup for those kinds of get-outs, too. Now chain the girls back again. So that's a closely related setup that, quite frankly, I see that on the fly all the time. But Bill said, Kip, you're just not normal. And, well, the idea is that this is one that I see. As much as I would see people paired in the line, I see a potential pairing across the line. All right? How many of you also see this? I am alone, aren't I? No. Okay? So on the fly, when you're doing sight calling, you don't have to absolutely get the exact pairing back before you can then apply a workable get-out, and that's the whole point. Does anybody have another workable get-out from this particular line, this setup?
Let's take the next one.
Take the next one, which is...
Same thing, but out of sequence.
Okay. You want to do the original part of it? Yeah. Okay, chain the right and left through. Let's do a right and left through. And now we have a situation where we're out of sequence. All right? The so-called the other situation, where everybody's paired and you're out of sequence. Now how about some get-outs from here?
Well, let me give a couple that I use all the time. You know, obviously here in the old days, you cross-trail through Alaman left, right, or star through, pass through Alaman left. We always use that in our caller schools for the newer callers. We want them to get those nailed down first, so that they recognize this situation, and do something about it. You could also pass through, partner, trade, and roll, right and left hand. Everybody pretty familiar with all those three that I just used? I think those are the most common ones that we've used over the years. All right? So, but there are other things that you can do here, and one that I have used for a long time is the following. Do a right and left through, Dixie style to a wave. I like the right and left through in front of that Dixie style, so I think of that one as an out of sequence, not an in sequence, even though after the right and left through I'm in an in sequence line. I'm starting from the out of sequence because I want that right and left through. And I've got Dixie style to a wave. I'll say, swing through, boys, start. Now, I got a couple of options here. I want to do basically a trade the wave, but I want to vary that because I could do two different things. Girls cross run, please. Boys step up and trade. There she is. You could do the right, left. Let's not do that. Boys run around the girl. And you can see that Dixie style to a wave, swing through, and then trade the wave or boys cross. Let's set it up again. Bend the line, please. Pass through and bend it again. Now we're looking at a slightly different situation, but we got the same one, haven't we? We got the same one. How do we see this? Everyone's paired. Everyone's paired. Corner is not adjacent to your pivot man. I don't care who your pivot man is. That statement's true, isn't it? Corner is not adjacent to the pivot man. Right and left through. Dixie style to a wave. Depending on the group, boys start, swing through. I may or may not say the boys start, depending on the group. Now, don't peek, trade the wave, whatever. And there it is. All right? Boys run around the girl, and we've got it again. Bend the line and do a right and left through. And we're back to it again. We're back to this. Everybody's paired, corner's not adjacent. Everybody's paired, corner not adjacent. I found a little add-on to this. It fits in the same little pigeonhole as this one I just did. Now that we've got cut the diamond on the plus list, good little call. Do a right and left through. Here it comes, same stuff, Dixie style to a wave. Boys start, swing through, go once, and a quarter. Girls hinge, that's the quarter. Cut the diamond, and there it is, right, left, grad again. So they're all three of those things in the same little box, aren't they? All three of those things, same little box. And it adds a bunch of stuff. Let's please, boys, run around the girl. Bend the line, and right and left through. We're back here again. Okay, I just want to show you and share with you those three things that I found to be very, very nice, very comfortable. And the thing that's going to happen to you is you're going to end up having this particular setup come to you without having done a right and left through. So you wouldn't want to get there by doing a right and left through and then have to do another right and left through. But half the time when you get everybody paired in facing lines, half the time this is the setup you're going to have. The other half you're going to be the right and left through from here, aren't you? So statistically, this is what you're going to have half the time. All right? Anybody else? Certainly there's guys with a lot of stuff out there now that are in this same kind of a situation. Anybody else have one that they are particularly enamored of or whatever?
Pass the ocean, scoot back.
Yeah, good. Pass the ocean, scoot back, and there it is. Don't do it. Boy, run around the girl, please. Bend the line, and right and left through. We're back there again. Anything else? Okay, well, that's quite a few things. How many picked up a new one or two out of this that they hadn't thought about before? Anybody? So that's the kind of thing we're hoping to get out of this session, gang. It's just a few little extra things. Now, if you're enamored of one of those or two of those little get-outs that one of us presented here, then my suggestion is make them happen the first few times. After a while, you're going to end up with getting one of these 6 that we're going to talk about pretty automatic. But for starters, to get it nailed down in your memory, what we suggest is make it happen. Make it happen. Get them in this situation. Everybody pass the ocean, please. Do your acey-deucey here. Recycle. Veer left. And now we say we got this situation, and we want to exploit that little get out that we just had, and we don't have everyone paired, so we're going to make that happen this time, just because we're looking for this particular one. Let's do the acey-deucey here now. Go acey-deucey, and everybody bend the line, and now we've got the situation. Do you agree? And here it comes, right and left through. That was sort of simple-minded, but nevertheless, you can see I engineered this Dixie style to a wave. Boys start, swing through, go once and a quarter. Here's your diamond. Cut the diamond. And there's your right and left hand, or you could have boys run or girls turn back. Girls turn back. Couples circulate once and a half. Bend the line, and you're home now, I think. So there's the kind of things that you can do. And as I say, if you're enamored of one of those one or two or three of those things, write them down, make them happen. Set them up and make them happen. All right. From facing lines, then, we've exploited the 2 common things with everybody paired. Now, clearly there's 4 others, aren't there? There's 4 others that you're going to see an equal percentage of the time. As soon as you start to resolve, you get somebody paired, the chances are you're going to have 2 paired and 2 not paired. Okay? Let's have the heads pair off, please. Do a right and left through, and veer left. and bend the line. Now, here's one of the situations you're going to come, aren't you? You're going to have two paired and two not paired when facing lines. And everybody knows we could here pass through, wheel, and don't do this. We could pass through, wheel, and deal and start resolving in the middle, couldn't we? But there's also things that we can do. Things that we can do right from here. As soon as you recognize this. Now, the way I recognize this, and let's see how many different ways people recognize this. I don't look at the sequence at all. I can probably analyze it and tell you, but what I see is left hands paired, everyone facing corner. You see that? Now, no matter who you picked as a pivot man, I think that's a true statement. And notice I don't have necessarily, if I pick the head man as my pivot man, he happens to be paired. No, excuse me, he's not paired, is he? So I picked the head man as my pivot man, but he's not paired. I just said left ends are paired facing corner. Now, if you're going to go get your pivot man paired, you are giving away half the opportunities, because half the time it's going to come up this way where it's not your pivot man is paired. It's the other guy's pivot man or somebody else. Right now, but the statement is still true, isn't it? Left ends paired, everybody facing their corner. And someone says, well, now that means you have to look at all the people. No, you don't. I know that if my pivot man is facing the corner, anybody's pivot man is facing the corner. Do you see that? Anybody doesn't see what I'm getting at there? Do you all agree? I'm sure all of you picked a different pivot man, right? Is your pivot man facing his corner? Or is your pivot girl facing her corner? I think the answer is yes, they're facing. So that's the way I see it. Anybody else, how do you see it? This particular setup. How do you articulate it in your head? Yeah.
I see it as the old this side of the street, that side of the street. Oh, it's
okay.
Really zero box. You've just manipulated it a little bit.
Yeah. Kenny, you need to be on the mic.
I just see it as being either on this side of the street or that side of the street. It's really your zero box. You've just rotated it a little bit.
That is true, but as a line, what you recognize what that anything about sequence or anything about who's with who or how you're going to use a get out from here?
I don't worry about that.
Well, but that's my point here. I'm looking for a way right now to get a get out right from here, from recognizing this situation. Not that I can now maneuver it into something that I can recognize and do something with. Like, for example, I started out by saying we could do a pass-through wheel and deal here and have a familiar situation. But I don't want to even go that far, see? I want to say right here, I'm going to be able to, on the fly, recognize this. Let me do this for me, please. Do this for me, please. Two ladies chain. Pass through. Bend the line. And right and left through. And two ladies chain. See if I did this right. Now, I think I've got the technically equivalent of that setup. And I still have left hands paired, everybody facing their corners. You agree? Left hand couples paired. And I don't know anything about, I'm telling you this, I can figure it out, but I don't know explicitly what the sequence is. I don't worry about that because I know that embedded in the statement, everyone facing their corner, I got the sequence implicit. In other words, bend the line from here, please, gang. Here's a different setup, isn't it? It's a different setup. I've got right ends paired, nobody facing their corner. And that's what I see, and I'm not worried about whether it's a box of some kind that's circulated or circled a half or a quarter. I'm not worried. I'm not thinking that way at all. Now I'm telling you the way I think about this. I'm not saying it's the only way, of course, but bend the line again, please. My point is that from here, I've got a get out that I can use when I see this setup emerge. When I see this setup emerge, try this. Pass the ocean. Girls trade and spread, Alaman left. And I think that's the answer. Isn't that the answer, guys? Once again, let's have the heads pair off, right and left through, veer left, and bend the line. Now, just like with Chuck's at this situation, I could also fan the top and spread if I felt that the dancer could do that. And that's an equivalent one to the one I just did. But there I've got that situation. I've got right ends paired, everyone facing their corner, and I don't have to pass through wheel and deal and think about a Dixie Grand or a Zoom and a square through three or anything. That's another option, of course. And I'm not saying that's a bad option or anything. But I think a lot more people use that option than use just the one I'm talking about here. Kip.
All right, Kenny brought up a good visual reference point here. Can you do me a favor and sing? What do I want to do here? Just, you're not sure. Just as couples, rotate to your left 1/4. There you go. That's it. Just slip into a box. Yeah, whatever. Now this is your standard 0 box, I believe. Heads just back out at home, and then pair off again. So everybody agrees that this was the box. Now, Kenny is saying that in a situation where you have left ends paired, everybody facing corner, that was Bill's description, Kenny was saying, I just see that as this standard box rotated around a little bit. That's basically what you're saying, right? Yes, and you can play there. In other words, from here, let's do this. In a circling fashion, just circle left 1/4 and drop hands. Now here's your line that has the right end paired. The right end paired. Is that correct?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right end. Everyone facing corner. Now do me a favor and take that box one more time and circle it 1 more quarter. Okay? Now this would be the equivalent of having the heads pair off and do a right and left through. But can you see that the close visual relationship of all of these setups that we're going through? And now 1 more quarter, please, folks. And we're back here to the line that has the left end paired facing corner. So this should answer a couple of questions for you. Number 1, do I have to view it as from a line? And the answer is no. Kenny's right. You can view the whole thing as a single concept of a box that's rotated into some quadrant or another. Or can you view it from the perspective of some couple in the line that's paired facing or not facing corners? They both work. All right? Now, isn't this a marvelous thing to know that you can view it either way? Here we have the left end paired facing corners. Bend the line. All right? Now we have the right end paired not facing corners.
Now, I'd like
Okay.
to add just one little thing. That's a good point. And what about the
Mike?
You're right. I'm sorry. The get out we just used, will that work here? Well, it will with a slight modification. Let's try it. Pass the ocean. Girls trade and spread. Alaman left, come back, right and left grand. And on the third hand, promenade. And so, look what's happened. You've learned this one little get out of pass the ocean, girls trade and spread, and you can use it in 2 different situations that are very close to each other, aren't they? Let's have the heads pair off again, please. Right and left through, veer left and bend the line. Let's just make sure we understand that. Here we have left ends paired facing corner. If we bend the line here, we know we don't change the sequence on anybody, but we really change the setup, don't we? We really change the setup. So let's bend the line. Now we really changed the setup, but look at what we've got. Before we had left ends paired facing corner, now we got right ends paired not facing corner. I got those 2 things in sort of the same box. Same, pigeonhole, I should say. Box is the wrong, bad word to use there. The same pigeonhole. I've got them in the same pigeonhole because I know that any get out that I used in the other place, I can use it here, and I can either, after they pass the ocean, girls trade and spread, I can either circulate them or I can do the element left right there, and then on the third hand. In other words, I've got, I know my sequence is right because the get out worked. That had the sequence built into it, didn't it? My get out of pass the ocean, girls trade and spread had the sequence built into it. Without me knowing explicitly what it was, it had it built in. Bend the line doesn't change that. No, please, no. I'm making a speech here. Yeah. That didn't change the sequence, did it? Bend the line again. Notice that, look, if you think about dancers on a string, you know, and look at their sequence relative to each other, bend the line, you'll notice that, please, that doesn't change the sequence, does it? Doesn't change the sequence. So if the get out worked before, sequence-wise, you're still in good shape. Relationship-wise, you've changed everything, haven't you? You've changed it from what you might call a partner relationship to an opposite relationship, or whatever, however you want to express that. You've changed it by a 4 ladies chain effect. You've had a 4 ladies chain effect. For those who know, thinking about technical zeros, this bend the line here is not quite a technical zero, is it? Because we've got a different situation. So bend the line is not a technical zero in this setup, is it? It's not a technical zero. It's a 4 ladies chain away from one. And that's exactly what happens there. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a line. Would you bend the line? I really mean it this time. Thank you. If we have this line that has the left end paired, everybody facing corner. Okay? And then we say bend the line. Bend it again, please. Now we have right end paired, not facing corner. Now can you relate this to your box? Like when you do a head square through four hands, isn't it true that everybody's facing corner after that? Is that true? If you do a right and left through, pass through, trade by, is it true that no one is facing corner? Okay, so what you're doing here is you have, I think they call this the corner box and the across the street box, right? Something of that nature. You're using things that you know about in corner boxes and across the street boxes, and you're applying them to the line. You're applying them to the line. And is it true that when we have the right end paired, not facing corner, that it is not the equivalent, but is very similar as having the head square through two hands and working with that outside pair? Right? Certainly we can see that. If you bend the line, go ahead, please. To your backside is number one man. Raise his hand, please. Raise your hand. And he has with him his opposite lady. And she can raise her hand too. So that particular couple is the one, after they head squared through, they're the ones that arrived out to the number 4 couple's position. Square your set for me. Now I know if I say head square through 4 hands that this number 1 man and his opposite lady will arrive out and begin to play with the number 4 couple. If I say square through 2 hands, please do that, then that same man and his opposite lady are now arrived out to play with the non-corner couple, the across-the-street couple, if you will. Now, do me a favor and veer left, bend the line. What we have here is right ends paired, not facing corner. And look who that same couple is playing with. They're playing with the number 2 couple, the across-the-street couple. Bend the line. Here we have left end paired, everybody facing corner. Now look who he's playing with. Do you see the relationship here? There's a strong visual relationship between these two types of setups. All right? Very, very strong. So, as Bill said, when you develop a get-out from one particular formation setup like this, it'll also apply across the street with a slight variation. All right? If you don't do this, what are you choosing to do? You're choosing to run the dancers around trying to match one man with one lady. You're looking for a single pairing, and you don't really need it. That's the whole point. You don't need that one precise, specific pairing. All right? Suppose I had this, and I'm saying to myself, my number 1 man, raise your hand please, is my pivot man. He's not paired. I can't do anything until I pair him. Do you see how much I've limited myself at this point, if that's my thought process? So, if you start thinking about these different types of setups and how they interact and interrelate, all of a sudden the possibilities explode in front of you. There's just so many different things that can be done. We have a situation now where we had, right end paired, not facing corner, and we have left end paired, bend the line, and this is right end paired, not facing corner, bend the line. This is left end paired, facing corner. We all agree? All right, pass through and bend the line. What is this? Left end paired, not facing corner. Wait a minute. I thought when you had the left end paired, they always had to be facing corner. It's not true. It's just another setup. All right? So now, if you've been able to figure out everything we've said so far, you can now multiply it by 2. Because you're about ready to double it. All right? Bend the line. Now we have right end paired, facing corner. Okay, is everybody with us so far on this, or are we moving too fast? Do a right and left through. This was the original setup I think that Bill had. All right, left end paired, facing corner. Do a right and left through. Right end paired, facing corner. They're both possible. All you need to do is develop a set of get-outs from here, and they will be notably different from the ones that you had when you had the left end paired facing corner.
This one's the front side of your cassette.
You haven't just done heads square through, veer left, and bend the line. I mean, we're not talking about that. Kip already said we're going to forget flow because we would never have done that. I wouldn't, at least. Kip wouldn't have done that particular thing in a real dance. Square through four hands, veer left. I wouldn't do that. So we were just using that's forgetting flow. But the point is, this setup, which we can recognize this way, right ends paired, facing corner, we can get to 100,001 different ways, and we decide we're going to resolve, bang, this is the first thing that shows up. As soon as we got a partner pairing, this is the one that shows up. Now, let's just to be sure, from some of the more traditional things you might have done, let's everybody pass through, wheel and deal. And now you can start thinking about a Dixie Grand or not, and depending on what you do, and we were going to get to that a little later, but typically you might say zoom here, and centers pass through, and there's, I think, your Alaman left. Is that right? So just promenade shortly back to home. I think you're close. But I'm not talking about that. See, that I put in a different kind of a pigeonhole. I'm not resolving at that point if I do a pass-through wheel and deal. I wait till after I pass through wheel and deal and then decide whether I'm going to do zoom or not, or whether I'm going to have them square through three or whatever. I'm not solving that kind of a problem at that point. And so that's why I say this is a snapshot that's useful in and of itself. And you see how that's a little different. That's a little different way to think about it, and I think increases your options quite a bit. All right. Now we've looked at now what I call the 6 lines that are easy for you. The 6 lines. You got at least one somebody paired with their partner. In some cases we had 2 paired. In two of the 6 we have everybody paired. The other 4 we have just 2 out of the 4 paired. I think that's enough for those particular 6, because we got 6 others in boxes, and we got some 2-face lines and some double pass-through situations that all are in a similar situation, having 2 paired. Okay, is that enough for everybody? How are you guys hanging in here? You in pretty good shape? Hanging loose, left or right? No, never mind. All right, let's look at the next one then. Let's have the heads pair off, and now this is of course a familiar 0 box, and I wasn't going to spend much time here. Yeah, on the other page or on the back of the first one, we have this situation. Now here, of course, obviously we've got the Alaman left is the easy one, isn't it? And we all have, I'm sure, get outs that you use from here. And I don't know what you put in this box, but or in this pigeonhole, I should say, box, the wrong word again, pigeonhole. But there's got to be a lot of things, and I'm sure all of you know a lot of them from here. This is probably one of the most familiar setups that you're going to ever use for your resolution. Because why? Because it's got 2 paired, 2 not paired, and that in a line situation occurs quite frequently. And you can make it happen from the line, can't you? By doing what we just did, pass through, wheel and deal, centers pass through, or whatever. And so you quite frequently get into the situation. And from here you could either do the Alaman left, if you're plus you touch a quarter, follow your neighbor. There's a lot of things you can do. I wasn't going to spend much time here. Anybody have any problem with that? Or anybody got any special, very clever thing that they do from here that's a little bit different? We had one this morning, incidentally, from this situation. When the outsides are at home, I don't know whether you guys all saw this. Mike Jacobs used it. Let's everybody do a right and left through. And you might set it up by doing the right and left through. All right? Now, from here, everybody slide through twice, and the centers roll, and you're home, I think. Is that right? And that's the way you can exploit that 0 box, if you will, with people at home by setting it up that way. Do the right and left, and then do the slide through twice, and have the centers roll, and you're going to be home. You could even say heads roll if you want the guillotine type call. But at any rate, you could... sorry, erase that from the tape. Anybody else have... I don't want to spend too much time because this is such a familiar one, but go ahead. Let's have the heads pair off, please.
Dave Kreider from Lidditz, Pennsylvania.
Uh-huh.
Everybody swing through.
Swing through.
Spin the top. Right and left through. Pass through. Do a U-turn back. Star through. Center to only zoom. Do an element left. Do an element left.
Okay, well, there's one that you might want to put down on your. It tends that's. I have mixed emotions about one like that for a couple of reasons. One is it's pretty long. I don't like long ones, but on the other hand, if I like it enough, I'll learn it. And he obviously likes it. He's learned it, and so rather than just being a 2 or 3 call quote get out, it was a half a dozen calls. But that's not, that's certainly not impossible by any means. Not impossible. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I don't know. The gentleman that just made that get out, who was that? Who was that? All right, have you always used the whole combination just as you described it? The whole sequence of calls? Including the swing through, spin the top, right and left through?
That's a good sequence for a singing call. But I use it sometimes in patter, just not very often, but I'll use it in a singing call more often.
Okay. Would it be valuable to you to be able to get there as quickly as you could? So that, because the real clever part of that is the zooming action back into home. So
we're looking for get out.
Yeah, we're looking for the get out. So is it valuable to you to be able to get to that more readily?
Not really.
Okay.
The figures aren't that hard, and you shouldn't break a floor down with that type of a figure.
Right.
Okay.
But let's have the heads pair off. All right. Okay. Now there's lots of ways to get to that same point. All right. And let's have the head square. Everybody square through 2, and do a U-turn back. Now this is the basic setup for that particular get out. And right. Okay. And this is not a normally arranged line. It happens to be a half arranged line. But there's also a lot of other clever things that can be done from here besides that one, and including the back to home get out that I think we showed you this morning. We'll do it again for you for the benefit of those who weren't there. But you can do a pass through, bend the line, and the ends roll, and you're home. All right? And that you might want to add that, see? Just add that to your little list of the stuff that you can do with that zoom action also, because it comes from the same place. The next setup that you see on the sheet is very similar to the first one, except we have the paired couple inside and the unpaired couple outside, and they're all facing corners. Let's have the sides pair off. This is where we were for the first setup. Do a right and left through. And I believe this is where we are for the next setup. Okay, we just... Go ahead.
And this is important, gang, because a significant portion of the time, when you get 2 paired and you've done your whatever, you're going to get to this spot first. Before you get to the box 1-4, whatever you want to call it. You're going to get to this spot with the insides paired and the outsides not, everyone facing corner. So I think it's good to have a get out for here that doesn't involve doing a right and left through and starting all over again from a 0 box, but starts right from here. Is that where you were heading, Kip? Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, we'd like to hear actually some of your ideas. What do you have for a get out from here that you like to use? Anybody want to move to the microphone? Okay, I mean, it's pretty obvious. We could dive through, square through 3 hands, Allemande left. We could slide through twice, Allemande left. There's a lot that can be done. So we just need to get some new, fresh ideas. Name and then your idea. Just a second, check.
Francois Lamoureux from Munich, Germany. Very simple thing. Left square through on your 3rd hand, Allemande left.
Does it work good? Yep. Okay. Thank you.
How many of you use that? Better write it down.
Okay. Have the sides pair off again, and let's do your right and left through to bring the setup back. And Chuck, you had one, but we'd like to get it on the tape if we could. So I'll just repeat it. So go ahead. All right. Slide through 3 times. Let's roll on the end. pass through, right and left grand, leave the grand right and left out, please, and that works good too. Okay? Tell you what, let's have the heads pair off, do a right and left through. Is this the same setup? Trick question. Trick question. Mike?
Here's kind of an old one. Pass to the center. Centers touch a quarter, and box circulate twice, and Alaman left.
Works nice. I don't see the pens moving, though. How many of you have used that one? That's why. Have the heads pair off, do a right and left through. Anybody else want to toss one out?
I'll toss out one.
Here we go.
All right. Go ahead. Give us one.
I'm Dottie Wells from Nova Scotia. Touch a quarter, centers trade, centers run, three-quarter tag the line, grand right and left.
Very good. All right. We're going to have to do that one again, gang. Heads pair off, right and left through. All right. Say it once again, louder and funny. No, just loud.
Touch a quarter, centers trade and run, three-quarter tag, grand right and left.
All right. One more time. Sides pair off. Right and left through. Maybe I've got it now. Touch a quarter. Centers trade. Centers run. You see it. Centers trade, centers run. You got that? Three-quarter. Tag the line. There it is. Right and left grand. All right. Here's one more. Let's have the sides pair off, right and left through. Now, once again, gang, you're going to see this come up. You may have done several things, and you're ending up here, and you want to be able to recognize this. Insides paired, facing corner. Is that correct? Insides paired, facing corner. And my point is a couple of things. First of all, if you like this, in some of these get-outs, like you just like the one the gal had, make it happen by setting it up from a zero box plus a right and left through. But let me tell you, after you do that and you get that in your bag of tricks, you're going to see this situation arrive on the scene as frequently as you're going to see the zero box arrive on the scene. Because a priori probability is the same, isn't it? You're going to have just as equal probability of getting this as anything else. So this is a good place to recognize it. Have it right from here. Swing through. Boys run. This got a little what I call alliterative appeal. Half tag, half trade, half circulate, and there you are. You could do a right and left grand, or you could. And if you think the guys are not too good on the half circulate, you can have them extend there, of course. But it loses a little bit of its, cuteness, I suppose, if you don't say half circulate. But repeat. All right, heads pair off. Change it this time. Right and left through. Here's the thing you see. The thing you see here is insides paired, all facing corner. That's the setup. Inside paired, all facing corner. Don't relate it to sequence or anything else. This is just a thing you see on the fly. You see it on the fly. Swing through. Boys run. Now notice here that if you wanted to look at a two-faced line, you might recognize it here. I personally don't. I use this get off, but I don't happen to recognize this setup. If I trained myself, I probably could, but I don't. The other one is close enough, and that's what I use. Half tag, half a trade, half a circulate. Now, if you recognize that you were close to home, you consider right and left grand, you can say swing at home. And that's got another advantage in that all those guys that did in the half circulate did a half a split circulate instead. But by the time you say swing at home, they'll figure it out. Anybody else?
Let's take a look at what we have when we have a paired couple and we're not facing the corner. All right, let's have the heads square through 2, right and left through. So here we have a situation where the inside couples are paired and we're not facing corner. This is so-called across the street box situation, all right, that you might be more familiar with. And And we need to recognize, we can recognize this on the fly. Well, how can you learn to recognize this on the fly? Well, it's really not as difficult as it seems. I mean, we've given you a lot of setups, but now start bringing them together. All right? You see that your inside couple is paired. What are the options on the outside? Facing corner or not facing corner? That's the only decision you need to make.
Let me add one more thing. Now, notice when Kip says inside couples paired, he means just the inside couples paired. Because if it were everybody paired, he wouldn't say it that way. That's important in my mind to the way you think about it. When you think about inside couples paired, you're automatically thinking outsides or not. Otherwise, he would have said everybody paired. You see that? That's all I wanted to add.
Right. The expression everybody paired says something totally different here and describes a totally different setup. But this is not what we have. What we have is inside couple paired, outside couple not paired, all facing, not facing corner. Not facing corner. So you see, if you have a list of get-outs that you can use from this so-called across the street box, and another list from the so-called corner box where they're actually facing corners, or from here where they're not facing corners, then all you need to know is, are they facing corners or not facing corners? So you boil down all these questions that you seem to need answers to one question. Are they facing corner or not facing corner? Once you've ascertained that you have a pairing in the middle and they're unpaired outside, are they facing corner or not facing corner? And then you simply go to the proper pigeonhole where you've stored all your get-outs and apply it. Now, how about some get-outs from here?
Hey, I learned a new one here. Touch a quarter.
Touch a quarter is centers trade, centers run, three-quarter tag, right and left grand, and on the third hand, help you. Do it. Yeah, you did. But you did it good. Well, we got a couple of major problems here. Yeah, on the third hand, all eight spin the top. And have the boys run. All promenade. Please don't stop. Hit the wheel around. Now let's just take this real-time situation, guys. And now I'm starting to look for a pairing. I did not say I'm looking to pair my pivot man. I said I'm looking for a pairing. These dancers are about as far out now as dancers can ever get. Literally, this is as far away from having a pairing as anybody can ever be. Out of sequence, men out, and everybody with opposite ladies. And that's it. You know, when you stop and think about it, that's a very simple statement, and if you really trip on this statement, the whole thing becomes very easy. You mean that's as far out as they can go? I can't get in any more trouble than this? And the answer is yes. This is it. All right, past the ocean, all eight circulate. All right. Yeah, we got the partners back again. All right, that past the ocean, all eight circulate. Gets the partners back again. All right, let's do an AC-doocy here. I think we can do that. And a recycle. All right, now let's start searching for the pairings. Do we have somebody paired anywhere? Would you do me a favor, please, and rotate your square 90 degrees clockwise? Thank you. That's it. Stay back to back in the center. Now, do we see a pairing? Oh, okay. All right, so what's the other question that we need answered? Facing corner or not facing corner? Yeah, the answer is yes. Yes, they are facing corners. Now, for our demonstration, I'm going to move them across the street because the demonstration that we're trying to do is the not facing corner aspect, okay? So, let's do this. Pass through, trade by, right and left through. And I know now that that's going, that little chicken plucker thing, a half a chicken plucker, is going to give me that paired couple inside, not facing corners. So let's pick it up again for the, what's it? Never mind.
I'm already in trouble.
Let's pick it up for some get-outs from here. Anybody want to volunteer?
Well, what about
how about single circle? Go ahead. To a right and left grand. And on the fourth hand, roll promenade. Oh, I like the roll. That's good. We saw a real roll promenade.
See if I can recover. heads do a half square through, and then a right and left through. Now, what I was getting at was that from here, any zero box, or whatever you want to call it, box 1-4, set up a get out that you could use here, couldn't you? Because we know the sequence is the same, and the only thing that's going to happen is that right and left grand thing is going to be on the third hand. But we could use any of the ones that we used before from here. Any of the ones that we used before at the zero box we could use here, I claim. And I thought it was that other one, but I put it off one spot. She brought in that the second time around, not the first time. That was my error of remembering. But we could use any of the ones that we used from a zero box. And sure, I think we could.
No, it's the zero box plus the right and left through.
I thought the insides are paired here. Aren't the insides paired? And they're not facing corner? They're not facing corner. So what zero box get out do you have?
But it's the zero box plus the right.
No, not plus the right and left through. The sequence is the same. It's and that's exactly my point. This is nominally equivalent to the zero box situation. It's just the opposite in two ways, isn't it? You see, it's opposite in two ways. First of all, you're not facing corners. Secondly, it's the insides pairs to the outsides. So it's different in two ways. So it's got to be the same. That was my point. Fine. And you see, Kip exploited that by doing a single circle to a wave, and then some circulates or right, left grandson on the third, fourth hand or whatever. He exploited that. And it's sort of like two wrongs make a right, but it's not quite, is it? It's not quite. All right, let's do one of the familiar ones. Touch a quarter. Follow your neighbor. Spread. Oh, I did the wrong thing. Do a single hinge. I'm sorry. But backward, follow your neighbor. Right here. Don't spread. Now I can do one of two things. I can do an Alaman left for this girl, right and left grand on the third hand, or I can say, all circulate, please. Alaman left. And promenade home. Once again, sides do a half square through, just to be sure we understand this. Yeah, I think that's it. Right and left through. We got the same situation. But we're on the other side of it now. We got the other people in there. And just be sure that I didn't screw you up too much. Touch a quarter. Follow your neighbor. Do not spread. A little dry toast there. All right? Alaman left right here. Right and left grand. And they're telling me you're crossed or something. But on the third hand, promenade. Once again, heads do a half square through. Right and left through. What else did we have from the zero box? Now we can't use the ones necessarily here that leave people at home because the other guys aren't at home. But there might be another one that you can use that leave people at home. I don't happen to have one. But anything else that we did from the zero box that you can think of? What did we do? Got one down here, Hal?
I was just going to point out something, and that is when we were dealing with lines and we just did a bend the line, we said, gee, everything changed, but we could still use this to get out and do a right and left grand on the third hand. We do it. But a fundamental part of that change was the fact that the sequence of the men had stayed the same.
Right, exactly.
Now,
and the ladies in that case.
Yes, yes. Now, if we take this situation from boxes and we do the square through and then a right and left through with the outsides, we say, okay, well, the insides are paired, the outsides aren't. But note that the men are out of sequence. Now, if you take your key couple over to the other side and you put them on the outside, it's not the same as when you did a bend the line because now the men are in sequence. So you can't use that same trick as you did before.
Aren't the men in sequence here?
The men are in sequence here, but when we had the head square through and then a right and left through with the outsides, so that we had the outsides not paired, centers paired. Okay, we had the men. In that case, we had the men out of sequence. Now we have the men in sequence, so it's not the same. It's not equivalent to when we were saying, "Oh, just bend the line and everything stays the same."
We've made an oversight, Hal. We've made an oversight here. Bill was not relating. The setup that you just mentioned, head square through, four hands, right and left through on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He wasn't relating that to this. He was relating this particular setup to a zero box where the men are truly in sequence, like a heads pair off.
Okay.
See? So that's why we're having a little bit of lack of communication here.
I understand.
But basically what Bill is saying is now from the setup of a zero box, you can take those get-outs
yes.
and apply them here, and you'll get sort of like
yes, that has the same relationship as the bend the line did
as
before.
The bend the line.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
Okay.
I did think of one as I was sitting here watching this from here that I think is kind of neat.
Okay.
Do a touch a quarter, and the ladies trade. The ladies walk and the men dodge. Kill. The ladies walk and the men dodge right. Alaman left.
Yeah. Okay, good. Mike, get ready and I'll set them up for you. Have the sides square through 2 sides, and then do a right and left through with the heads. Okay? And let's all say what this setup is. I mean, when I'm asking you to say it and speak it, if you learn to speak it, then that's the thought that'll go through your mind when you see it. All right? So say it with me. Insides paired, not facing corner. Okay, Mike?
Okay, I like the real quick ones because you can remember them real easy. Pass to the center, centers touch a quarter, Alaman left.
Yeah, that's neat.
Something like that.
That's neat. Head square through 2, and do a right and left through. Don
Beck, Massachusetts. Unfortunately, I missed the very beginning of this, so I'm not quite sure what you're...
Very good.
I'll have to buy the tape, now that I'm on it anyway. But in trying to... I think I've caught up with what you're trying to do, and when I see this particular formation with this particular setup, yes. I do... a get-up or a number of get-ups do pop into mind, and I think that's what you're looking for. It's not a matter of, for instance, I see pass through, trade by. Don't do it. But do a veer to the left. Couples circulate. Ladies trade. Ladies run. To your left, in front of them, Alaman left. And, it just, that setup particularly, brings that thing to mind for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. And you don't have to have a complete library of get-outs from each one of these setups. Actually, when you get 1 or 2 and then you add a third later on, and it's amazing the way it all builds. And then you have tremendous variety. Now, we're running a little bit behind on time, and there is one other type of box that we need to look at, and that's the one where everybody is paired. Sure. Half square through. We're setting up another setup where the centers are paired, not facing corner. Go ahead.
One figure to right and left grand.
One figure to a right and left grand. Spin chain through.
Girls staying.
Girls stay there.
Boys turning to the left. Right, left grand.
And there it is, right and left grand. Okay. All right. Good. How about a nice singing call application? All right. Just rotate those girls. Get those girls all rotated towards corners. When you start your figure out, then move them over to that same kind of a box setup. Call your spin chain through, and you've got yourself a corner swing and promenade. All right. Let's have now the heads lead right. Now, using the same type of parlance, if you will, how can we describe this? All paired. No, that's right, because we do have one man that's facing his corner and one that's not facing his corner. Okay? All right. When we have a situation where they're all paired, we want to check adjacency for the corner, not necessarily what's in front of us. And we might have to go to a line to do that, just to demonstrate it anyway. Now, if you veer left and bend the line, we all of a sudden have come full circle here with our discussion, because now we're back in lines, all paired, corner not adjacent. Okay? Corner not adjacent. Now, do me a favor and go back to that box again.
Now, the way I would look at this is everybody paired, outside man facing corner. And if my pivot man was the inside man, I would say the opposite, inside man not facing corner. But I would say, well, my pivot man is the outside. If he happened to be, because I got to be able to take care of both of them, don't I? I would say, and let's say Chuck's my pivot man, outside man facing corner. Do you see that? You all agree? Everybody pass through, trade by. This happens to be an exactly equivalent setup. Inside man, not facing corner. I claim it's the same thing. You see that? Inside man, not facing corner. I haven't changed the setup. In both of these setups, I could have done a swing through to right and left grand. Do you agree? So, once again, pass through, trade by, outside man facing corner. I need to be able to handle both of those, don't I? I've got to be able to handle them both because they're going to occur with equal probability, aren't they? They're going to occur with equal probability. So, that's the way, that's the recognizer, as Kip would say. Let's say it all together. And I'm going to take the outside man for right now, okay? Everybody paired, outside man facing corner. And you need to have something like that. And if you've got something equivalent, you could use that. But that's the way I see this. That's the way I see this. Anybody else see it the same way? Nobody. No wonder I'm. Does anybody use this kind of a setup with a get out? Anybody use this as a get out right from here without doing anything else that you're going to recognize sequence from, or something like veer left, bend the line? Now you're in facing lines. That's a different problem, but uses it right here. You swing through. How do you recognize it?
Yes. I look for adjacency.
You guess.
Well, yeah.
Okay, but that's, what if he's wrong? Does everyone do a right and left through? And now he says, okay, I'm guessing. Swing through. And am I ready to do it, or I say I'm not? Look, boy run. Girls hinge. Flip the diamond, right and left grand. So I'm very close, and if I've got an escape clause, no, isn't that right? Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, boy trade. I'm sorry, boy trade. Excuse me, you're right. Boy trade, right, left grand. So I've got an escape clause. And so what he's saying is, if you don't recognize it ahead of time, you can, with a little bit of how do I solve that problem, knowing I've only got two possibilities. I either swing through a right and left grand, or I swing through and I got everybody with their partner, but I'm out of sequence. I can change it right there by doing a couple of things. And is that what you're talking about doing? It gives you the time to do it. That's right. I agree.
Okay. First of all, please show our appreciation to this square of dancers who've been up here for an hour and a half. We do appreciate it. Would you please be seated? Thank you. They were wilting rapidly. We're going to have a few comments to give out here, and I just want to sort of wrap this up and say that we've discussed a tremendous amount of information here in the last hour and a half. Your homework assignment? Homework, you didn't know there was going to be a homework assignment? Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, there's a quiz tomorrow. But your homework assignment, quite frankly, is take this sheet now and set up some dolls and move them around. Develop some get-outs, but also begin to sense and see the relationship between all of these different setups that we described here today. I would also encourage you to purchase the tape. You may want to hear this session over again. In any event, we do appreciate you all coming. I'm going to open up the floor to any final comments, but we do have some people in here I know who have to get out for another session and so on. People will be leaving, but please stay and let's talk some more. Anybody have a comment they want to make? Kenny, use this mic, would you, Ken?
How about a big hand for these guys? Wasn't this excellent? Whoa, this is hot. I just wanted that last formation that you talked about. Of course, we all see these in different ways. I've always thought of that as the lead to the right formation. And I always see that in my head. That's where they'll be if they lead to the right. And you could do a touch, a quarter, split, circulate, trade, and roll right and left grand.
Right. I look at it in a similar manner, and I key off that pivot man. One of those guys is my pivot man. And I key off of him. Is he facing his corner? If the answer is no, then I know I'm across the street. You see? And basically that's the way I key on it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Gary Weston, California. Kip, I heard you mention a couple of times in here sight resolution. Are we actually sighting to a resolution here, or are we sighting to a point that we use a memorized get out, something that we recognize? We're not actually sighting the square to a resolved square.
That's correct. In the sense that you will always find plenty of discussion on this, by the way, because I think we're splitting hairs with our definition here. But the final point of resolution is where everybody comes precisely back to the original partner in the proper numbered order. That's not what we're getting at. What we're trying to do is to have, if you will, flags, marks in the square in different setups, and when we get there, we know where to go to resolve. So yes, we have some canned resolve sequences that are truly, they become memorized. And that, if you want to just put it this way, very simply, you're only creative the first time. After that, it's memorized. And so, yeah. Anybody else want to make a comment? Okay.
Just along with your question or comment there, one follow-up thing that I like to think about this is that what we are doing here is we're trying to get you aware that you can recognize things, particular setups, that have at least one partner pairing on the fly from several different formations. We didn't cover them all even, but from several different formations you can recognize them on the fly, and then you can move right from there. So it turns out that, is this the resolution? I say yes, this is the resolution, because you are in control, you're in charge at that point. You see the pairing, and you see where your pivot man is, racing the corner, is he facing corner, not facing corner, all those things, and you say, I know where I am, and I could turn my back, close my eyes, or whatever, and finish it from there. Don't have to do anything more, because, and not only that, I've seen this, and I haven't had to set it up. I haven't, maybe the first time, like we said, you might want to, when you get them in your head, you might want to engineer it and make it happen. But after you've done that 10 times, you've set that thing up and you saw it 10 times. Now, from now on, you don't set it up. You just wait till it happens to come. And since you've got another half a dozen that occur with that come up with the other possibilities, if you're in facing lines, you've got them all covered. All 6 of those where somebody's paired, you've got them all covered. And if you get in a little trouble, you can always revert back to pass-through wheel and deal and take care of it from an 8-chain, from a double pass-through situation back into an 8-chain through. You can always do that, because everybody does that already. So you've got a little safety valve there with 2 paired, 2 not paired, and you're in facing lines, and you've forgotten whether it's touch a quarter, boys shake left hands, pull by, or pass the ocean, girls trade and spread. Or when you forgot which one it is and you don't want to take the chance, you can revert back to your pass-through wheel and deal. So you've got other options. But if you engineer them a few times, I claim that after a while you can learn to recognize them right there on the fly and exploit them right there. Exploit them right there. And you have all the information you need by saying the kind of words that Kip had you say there. By saying those words and getting those nailed in your head, you've got all you need. You don't need any more information.
Okay. Thank you very much. Would you please help me out? Thank you. On returning these chairs back to the original spot.